You know what? I got into this business by accident. It really was. I was working in digital marketing, which Sean will appreciate, and got laid off from that job at the end of 2012. And it was the old story. You know, I've been doing this as a sideline gig for a good number of years. But the old saying is, if not now, when? So when that happened, I was faced with the choice of either going back into digital marketing, which I was quite good at, frankly, or taking the lid off of something that I'd been doing that I really enjoyed doing for a lot of years. So that was the start of First Impressions Video. So I launched it at the end of 2012 and have been doing it formally as a full-time endeavor since then. But it's really funny because before that happened, I'd even done some paid work. A friend of mine, I worked at Entrepreneur Media, Entrepreneur Magazine, for 4 years, and a friend of mine there that knew that I liked to walk around with video cameras asked me if I would shoot a gig for him, and it wound up being the president of the Los Angeles Economic Development Committee, whose name is Bill Allen. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he was the son of Steve Allen. And that was my first official paid gig as First Impressions Video. So it went from there. Done a lot of work around my church as well as paid commercial assignments. But what I want to talk to you about today is, you know, how best to tip me. You know, if you think about the personal endeavors that we're all involved in, most of what I do revolves around change of life. So if you think about any change of life, any rites of passage, those are good places to find referral opportunities for me. For example, you could be an engagement, a wedding. And again, I got to give props to Shelly Kincaid because she was my sponsor bringing me here. And you can usually find me bird dogging around behind photographers because where they go, I usually go. So that's a pretty good thing. But you think about engagements, weddings, graduations, bar bat mitzvahs, quinceañeras, milestone birthdays. I've just done a couple of birthdays. One was a 60th birthday for a very successful real estate broker. And the other one was a 90th birthday for a good friend of mine who's a general contractor. His mom turned 90, and so I actually videotaped that. So that's kind of cool. And then, of course, last but not least, funerals and memorials. And so Kathy DePerry would certainly know that. Each of your businesses, each one of them can benefit from video, but just going beyond producing one for your own personal shops, here's a couple of thought starters that speak to how this can be extended from your business through contacts and friends that you know. For example, starting with the obvious photographers. I mean, where she goes, I go. So if you think about anything that Shelly Kincaid would be asked to photograph, I could probably be there doing the same thing with the video camera, and vice versa. So we become very good partners in crime for lead opportunities. A jeweler. How about that? We got jewelers sitting over here. Well, again, you think about engagements and weddings and all those kinds of events and activities. He's got an ear towards that, so he's engaged in dialogue. It's real easy to say, well, have you assigned a photographer or a videographer to your event? And bingo, there you are. Funeral director, Jackie DePerry. This could actually have two applications. You could actually do a montage of videos encompassing the life of the person that passed away, or you could actually videotape the actual service itself. I've done both. Let's see, what else have we got? Attorneys. Okay, lots of attorneys. You know, attorney work is kind of funny if you're doing legal videography because you have to have specialized equipment, and the most important thing that they want to know from you is if you can burn in the time code, because if it's something related to any jurisprudence, they want to make sure that it's visually accurate and it represents exactly what transpired in the course of whether it's a deposition, if it's a day in the life recording, if it's an accident scene recording, something like that. So again, thinking about opportunities where I can support an attorney, those are thought starters. Internet marketing, web development, graphic designers, we got them all here. For the same reason, you're interacting with clients that are building a web presence, and you've heard me talk about the percentages that make video as compelling as they are, so that's good reason for any of these guys to be able to pass tips my way. Financial advisors, insurance agents, realtors, mortgage brokers, same thing. Lots of change of life activities centered around these professions. And so if you just are alert to those opportunities, you can real easily make recommendations, pass them this way. So, you know, just talking about landing the plane, you know, just putting a cap to this, you know, there's a lot of stuff that I can do. I would invite you to take a look at my website. My demo reel is on it. You can see kind of a capsule sketch of a lot of different stuff that I've done, mostly commercial stuff, a couple of nonprofits, and a couple of weddings on it. And so I'm always available to answer any questions. No quotes too big, no quotes too small. 90% of my work is done as what I call a single person crew, SPC. So I show up, it's usually me. But for the larger, more complex jobs, Ron and I talked about one last week, and he showed me the website for it, and it's an extremely complex project. So for something like that, I call in a full crew of graphics specialists, lighting guys, grips, audio guys, and me acting as director of photography or the director of the program. So, like I said, if it moves, I shoot it. And my tagline is because you never get a second chance, because in event videography, you can't say cut, take two. If you miss it, you missed it. And Shelley can probably tell you horror stories about that, but where you're capturing motion, yeah, if you miss the vows, you're in trouble. Yeah. If you're at a memorial service and people are at a pitch of emotion and you miss a critical presentation from a speaker, you've blown it. So that's where I got the name First Impressions Video, because you never get a second chance to make a first impression. That's what I do, and that's my story. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Terry. Do I? You know, not a joke. No, it's not a joke. I actually wrote a story about drones, and my blog, if you read my blog, I've got all kinds of stories that cover the gamut for videography. And you know, I was at a big expo last weekend called Cinegear, and drones was the hot topic, as you would imagine. Everybody's got one. No, I do not have one, Terry. And it's funny you mentioned that. We've probably all seen the video clip that's been floating around of the guy that swatted one out of the sky. Yeah. Yeah, he was kind of ticked off, and if I was the guy that owned that drone, I'd be even more ticked off about it. But, you know, I guess there's a lot of discussion about how they're to be used, and right now you're not even able to use it commercially. But if you do it as an add-on, that's kind of the workaround for that. But no, I don't have one. I will probably get one this year.
Does rotary wing concern you?
Not really.
Oh.
You know, helo drivers, you know, if I can pat my head and rub my stomach at the same time, you know, I can probably get away with it. Yeah.
So, you were talking about these montages, so I'm guessing you can take in different kinds of media and edit them?
Yes. I use the Adobe Creative Suite, and the neat thing about Premiere Pro, the current version of that, is I can take any format of video footage, any photographs, and I can bring them in and I can work with them. So it's format agnostic now, which is really cool.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Thanks, everybody.
All right, sure.
All right.